Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into something today that's, well, it's both ancient and incredibly relevant to today.
Mhm.
We're talking about the relationship between technology and the growth of civilization.
Okay, sounds interesting.
Yeah, and to guide us through this, our main source material is going to be the book Technology and the Growth of Civilization. It's by Giancarlo Genta and Paolo Riberi.
Okay, I'm familiar with their work.
So get ready because we're going to explore some really intriguing questions like did technology, did it actually originate from like divine intervention? Was it a gift from the gods? Or is this whole notion of progress is that just like a Western thing, a Western
Yeah,
invention?
those are some big questions.
And was the Roman Empire really as technologically advanced as we've always been told?
I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, so, when we think about technology, we often think about, like modern stuff, smartphones and the internet. But it's actually much, much older than that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Technology it's as old as humankind itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, it's woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human.
So we're talking like way back to the roots of humanity, like caveman days.
Exactly. Think about early Homo sapiens and how they developed stone tools.
Okay.
These, at first glance, these seem pretty simple, right? Just stone tools, but they actually represent a really profound uh, cognitive leap.
Oh.
And if you look at how these tools evolved over time, you see this pattern. You get these bursts of innovation, and then these periods of kind of stagnation. And a lot of times these bursts coincide with the emergence of new human species.
So like our brains were evolving and that was like leading to new
Yeah,
technologies.
exactly. It's this fascinating link between like our physical evolution, our cognitive abilities, and our capacity for technological advancement.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. But I'm curious, like, what does that pattern tell us about, the human drive to innovate? Like, is it all about survival, or is there something more to it?
That's a great question to consider. There's no doubt that tools helped our ancestors survive, in these really challenging environments. But when you look at the craftsmanship, how intricate some of these tools were, and how complex they became, it suggests that there's something more going on than just survival.
Okay, so like, what do you think it is then?
Well, maybe it speaks to this, innate human desire to shape the world around us.
Yeah.
To understand it. Maybe it's this yearning for mastery, that goes beyond just basic needs.
I like that. Yeah, it makes you think about, like were the seeds of art, science, philosophy, were they already there in those early tool makers?
Absolutely.
Now speaking of like, really transformative technologies, we gotta
Yeah.
talk about fire, controlling fire. That had to be a pivotal moment for humankind.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine, harnessing this incredibly powerful force? It revolutionized cooking, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly you had access to new foods, better nutrition, and it gave warmth, and protection from predators.
Right.
And they even started to manipulate the landscape using fire with, controlled burns, which shows you they were starting to understand their environment.
And it really is amazing to think about the implications of something as basic as fire. But, controlling fire also it introduced risk, right? Fire can be incredibly destructive.
Exactly. Fire really embodies this duality of technology. It has this power to create, but also to destroy. And early humans they had to really understand its nature, learn to respect its power. And that tension between the benefits and the dangers of technology, I mean, that's been a constant throughout human history.
Yeah, it makes you think, that early understanding of fire. It's almost like a metaphor for our relationship with technology, even today.
Absolutely.
But let's move on to another interesting idea, the cognitive revolution.
Yeah.
The theory is that around the Middle Paleolithic period, humans went through this huge cognitive shift. So what exactly does that mean, and what evidence do we have for it?
Well, the cognitive revolution, it refers to this period where it seems like human cognitive abilities they suddenly surge forward.
Yeah.
It's when we see things like abstract thought, complex language, symbolic representation. And we have evidence for this in a lot of different places.
Mm.
Advancements in tool making, the appearance of cave art, and also just the fact that humans started spreading across the globe.
Yeah.
All of this suggests that they had, better problem-solving skills and more sophisticated social organization.
Okay, so it wasn't just like physical changes, but also a change in how humans thought and interacted with the world.
Right.
So what does this cognitive leap, what does it tell us about technology and civilization?
I think it's hugely important. This cognitive revolution, it really paved the way for more sophisticated tools, organized hunting strategies, the development of social structures, and some have even argued that the invention of money, which seems like a abstract concept, might actually be linked to this cognitive shift.
Okay, wait. So you're saying money is like a technology.
Well, think about it. Money is a move away from bartering, trading actual goods. It's a symbolic representation of value.
Hmm. I've never thought about money that way before.
Right, and that shift to symbolic representation, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I guess it really highlights how technology isn't just about, physical tools, but also about systems and concepts that change how we interact with each other.
Absolutely. Technology, in the broadest sense, it's about using knowledge and ingenuity to solve problems, to achieve goals. And money, as this system for exchange, for storing value, well, it fundamentally changed human interaction. It laid the groundwork for more complex economic systems, and in a way, it shaped the course of civilization.
So we've established that technology is much older and more, I guess, more complex than we often think it is. But let's fast forward a bit. Let's talk about the Dark Ages, this period that we always hear about that was supposedly like devoid of technological advancement. But is that really true? Were the Middle Ages really a time of technological stagnation?
Well, the term Dark Ages it's really kind of misleading. It's a label that we've applied looking back, and it ignores a lot of the significant innovations and societal changes that happened during the Middle Ages.
You mean it wasn't as dark as we think it was?
Not at all. Yeah, it's one of those things that we kind of take for granted, But when you really dig into it, you see that our understanding of history is, well, it's shaped by the stories we choose to tell.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what are some of the advancements that get overlooked, When we talk about the Middle Ages, was there anything that you found particularly surprising while you were researching this?
Well, one of the things that really surprised me was the role of Christianity actually in fostering technological progress.
Wait, really? I mean, you always hear about, the church being this obstacle to science.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the stereotype. But the reality is it's much more nuanced than that. Early church fathers, they saw the natural world as God's creation.
Okay.
And they believed that understanding how it works was, well, it was a way of understanding God's design.
So they were encouraging people to study nature.
Yep, exactly. And that led to this reevaluation of craftsmanship, of manual labor. These skills weren't seen as menial or unimportant anymore. They were seen as a way of participating in the divine order.
Okay, so like building those amazing cathedrals, with all the arches and the stained glass, like that was seen as a form of worship.
In a way, yeah. I mean, think about it. Building those cathedrals required not just artistic vision, but also, really advanced engineering, a deep understanding of geometry and physics.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, what they were able to accomplish. But were there any other like specific technological advancements that happened during this period that challenged this idea of the Dark Ages?
Yeah, absolutely. One that's often overlooked is the heavy plow.
The plow, like for farming?
Right, exactly. It seems pretty basic, but it had huge implications for agriculture, for the development of society. You see, this plow was capable of cultivating the heavier soils of northern Europe, which meant that agricultural yields increased significantly, and that freed up labor for other pursuits. It led to population growth and urbanization.
Wow. So like one simple tool could have that much impact.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that this invention, it's attributed to the Germanic people.
Oh, wow. Not the Romans or the Greeks.
No. And, the Germanic people were often portrayed as barbarians in historical accounts.
It's amazing, that sometimes the most impactful technological advancements aren't necessarily the flashy ones.
Yeah, that's true.
You also mentioned the rise of finance and accounting in the Middle Ages. How did that fit into all of this? The technological and societal change.
Well, that's another area that kind of challenges our assumptions. The Middle Ages saw the emergence of some pretty sophisticated financial practices, driven in part by the growing wealth of monasteries.
Monasteries.
Yeah, these institutions were prohibited from personal profit. So what they did was they reinvested their wealth, which led to a more kind of capitalistic approach to managing resources.
Huh.
The Knights Templar, for instance, they developed a really complex banking system to support their activities across Europe.
Yeah.
They even had a system of credit, where they could transfer funds without actually having to physically carry gold around.
Wow, a medieval banking system. So they were already laying the groundwork for modern finance even back then.
Exactly. And this era, it also saw the birth of double-entry bookkeeping.
Double entry bookkeeping. What is that?
Well, it's this revolutionary system for tracking debits and credits,
Uh,
the kind of thing that forms the foundation of modern accounting. And it's really hard to overstate the importance of this innovation. I mean, it was essential for the development of, global trade, complex economic systems. It really shows the intellectual energy and the practical ingenuity of this period.
I'm telling you, I'm getting a whole new perspective on the Middle Ages. It sounds like the Dark Ages were a lot more enlightened than we've been led to believe.
Yeah, definitely a lot more going on than we often give them credit for.
Okay, so we've explored the ancient world, we've busted some myths about the Middle Ages, we've even uncovered some surprising twists, in the technological stories of Greece and Rome. But now I wanna shift our focus a little bit to a question that's been on my mind throughout this whole conversation. What factors led to the West's dominance in technology?
That's a big question and a complex one. It's a mix of historical, cultural, economic forces that
Yeah.
all shape the path of Western civilization. But we can point to a few key factors.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear it. What were the ingredients, that came together to create this environment of technological innovation in the West?
Well, one crucial element was this unique blend of Greek rationality, and Judeo-Christian thought.
Okay.
The Greek emphasis on reason, observation, combined with the Judeo-Christian concept of linear time, the idea of progress. It created this fertile ground for scientific inquiry, for the pursuit of knowledge as a way of understanding God's order.
Hold on a second. You're saying that the idea of linear time, like as opposed to cyclical time, that actually played a role in technological development.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's really important. You see, in a lot of ancient cultures, time was seen as cyclical, an endless repetition of birth, death, rebirth. But the Judeo-Christian tradition, it introduced this concept of a linear timeline, a narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end, a story that unfolds with purpose, with direction.
So instead of just, repeating the past, there was this drive to move forward, to create something new.
Exactly. And this linear view of time, well, it fostered a mindset that was geared toward progress, improvement, innovation.
Yeah.
It encouraged this belief that a better future was possible, a future that humans could shape through, their ingenuity, their efforts.
Wow, that's an amazing connection. It makes you realize how much our cultural values, our beliefs, they shape our approach to technology.
Absolutely.
But you also mentioned the rise of capitalism as a key factor. So how did that economic system contribute to the West's technological dominance?
Well, capitalism, with its emphasis on individual initiative, competition, the pursuit of profit, it created a powerful engine for innovation. I mean, the desire to make money, well, it led to investment in new technologies. It encouraged inventors and entrepreneurs to come up with solutions to problems, to meet the demands of a growing market.
So you're saying the drive to make money actually fueled technological progress.
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's a complex relationship. The pursuit of profit, it can lead to negative consequences, obviously, but it also unleashed this wave of creativity, of ingenuity that really propelled the West forward.
It's a complicated story for sure, but we can't ignore the darker side of this, can we? The rise of the West was tied up with colonialism, a period marked by exploitation and oppression. How do we reconcile that dark chapter with this whole narrative of technological progress?
That's an important point. Colonialism was brutal. The exploitation of resources of people, you know.
Mhm.
It caused immense suffering. It left scars on the world that we're still dealing with today. But we have to acknowledge it. Understand its complexities, you know, and the lasting impact of its legacy. And it's also important to remember that colonialism, while it was driven by greed, by power, it also led to the exchange of knowledge, of technologies across continents.
Okay, so it's a complicated truth. We can't just celebrate the technological achievements of the West without acknowledging the injustices that were a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm curious about the specific technological breakthroughs that emerged during this period. Was there like a single turning point,
Mhm.
or was it more of a gradual process?
Well, the Industrial Revolution, which started in the late 18th century, that really stands out as a pivotal moment in human history. It was this period of just incredible technological change. It reshaped societies and it really
Mhm.
propelled the West to a position of global dominance. But
Yeah.
but it's important to understand that this revolution wasn't just one event. It happened in phases,
Yeah.
each one with its own innovations, its own impact on society.
Okay, let's break it down then. What were the key features of the first industrial revolution? I remember learning about, steam engines, factories, all that stuff, but what else was going on?
Well, the first industrial revolution, it was really centered in Great Britain. And it was driven by a bunch of factors. You had innovations in textile production, in iron manufacturing, and of course the development of the steam engine. But actually the initial power source for a lot of those early factories, it wasn't steam, it was water wheels.
Water wheels, like the ones they used, way back in the day.
Exactly. It's interesting, you had this mix of old and new technologies coming together during this time of such rapid change.
Yeah, I guess if it worked, why not use it, right?
Right. And it was this combination that really sparked the first industrial revolution. The mechanization of textile production,
Yeah.
advancements in how they made iron, the harnessing of water power, steam power, all of it. It led to this huge increase in productivity. It was the beginning of mass production.
So it wasn't just about, inventing new machines, but also about figuring out how to organize production on a larger scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And this had a profound impact on people's lives, on everyday life. The Industrial Revolution, it changed not just how things were made, but also the structure of society. People moved from rural areas to cities looking for work in these new factories. New social classes emerged, and the pace of life, it accelerated. I mean, the rhythm of the factory, it became the dominant force in people's lives.
It was like a whole new era in human history, but that was just the beginning, right? What about the second industrial revolution? How did that build upon, what had already happened?
Well, the second industrial revolution, that started in the late 19th century.
Mm.
And this one saw the emergence of new materials, new energy sources,
Yeah.
entirely new industries. You had steel production, which was driven by things like the Bessemer process,
Hmm.
and steel replaced iron as the dominant building material. Electricity that transformed manufacturing, lighting, communication, and then you had the internal combustion engine, which gave birth to the automobile,
Hmm.
and that revolutionized transportation.
Okay, so now we're talking about like cars, electricity, mass production. It sounds like the world we live in today is still shaped by what happened during this second phase.
Yeah, absolutely. The second industrial revolution, it really laid the groundwork for the modern world. It ushered in this era of mass production, consumerism, rapid technological change, and we also saw the rise of mass media during this time. Newspapers, magazines, radio, film, and that had a huge impact on culture, on how information was spread.
It's amazing to see how these waves of innovation, they build on each other. You get this cascade of technological change that we're still experiencing today.
Yeah, it's this continuous process.
But what about the third industrial revolution? When did that happen, and what was different about it?
The third industrial revolution, some people say it's still going on, but
Yeah.
but it started in the second half of the 20th century. And it's really defined by, the rise of computers, automation, the internet, all these technologies that they fundamentally changed how we work, how we communicate, how we interact with the world.
Okay, so now we're in the digital age. Computers, smartphones, the internet. It's hard to imagine life without this stuff now. But what makes this revolution different from the ones that came before it? Is it just the speed of innovation, or is there something more?
Well, I think the third industrial revolution, it marks this shift from the physical world,
Yeah.
the world of manufacturing, of industry, to the realm of information,
Right.
of digital technologies. It's about processing and manipulating data. It's about the interconnectedness of systems, and this blurring of the lines between the physical world and the virtual world.
Yeah, it's almost like we've entered this whole new dimension,
Yeah.
where information itself becomes the raw material for innovation. It's exciting, but it's a little overwhelming too, to think about what it all means. But amidst all this talk of progress, of technological leaps, I want to bring up a crucial question. What about the downsides? We've talked about colonialism, and its role in shaping the West's technological trajectory, but I'm also thinking about the destructive potential of technology, especially in warfare.
Yeah, you're right. The history of technology it's intertwined with the history of conflict.
Okay.
And the 20th century, with its two world wars and the development of nuclear weapons, it's a stark reminder of just how destructive technology can be.
It's a scary thought, really. So how did technology change the nature of warfare in the 20th century? Were these world wars just a continuation of what had happened before, or did technology introduce something new, something even more devastating?
Well, the Industrial Revolution, with its ability to mass produce weapons, to
Mm.
create these incredibly complex and lethal weapons, it really set the stage for the scale of destruction that we saw in the 20th century.
Right.
World War One, it was called the Chemists' War for a reason. It introduced these new horrors, submarines, airplanes, chemical weapons, and the casualties were just unimaginable.
It's chilling to think about. And then of course you have the development of the atomic bomb. That was a turning point, It changed how we understand the power of technology.
Absolutely. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they marked a profound shift in human history. It was the first time we had the power to destroy entire cities in an instant. And the effects of radiation, the long-term consequences, well, they still haunt us today.
Yeah, that's true.
And the development of nuclear weapons, it forced the world to confront this very real possibility of self-annihilation.
It's a heavy burden to carry, that knowledge that we have, the capacity for such destruction.
It is.
But technology and warfare, it's not just about these big events, the dramatic stuff. There are also, more subtle ways that technology has shaped conflict. Can you talk about, some of those less obvious impacts?
Oh, absolutely. Think about the role of propaganda in shaping public opinion during wartime.
Yeah.
The development of mass media, radio, television, the internet, all of this has given governments, and other groups powerful tools to spread information,
Mm.
but also to spread misinformation,
Hmm.
and even to incite violence.
Right.
This ability to control the narrative, to shape how people perceive events, well, it's become a really important part of modern warfare.
Yeah, and as we've seen through our history, the line between information and propaganda, it can be pretty blurry, especially during times of conflict.
That's why it's so important to think critically, to be aware of the potential for bias in the information that we're consuming.
Yeah.
Technology, in all its forms, it's increased our ability to communicate, to share information, but it's also made it easier to spread misinformation, to deceive people.
So we need to be careful about what we're reading, what we're watching.
Exactly.
But I'm also curious about the relationship between, military funding and the development of technologies that we use every day. Didn't some of the technologies that we take for granted today come from military research?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's this interesting back and forth between military research and the technologies we use in our daily lives.
Mm.
Sometimes breakthroughs in military technology, they lead to spin-offs that benefit society as a whole.
Mm. Can you give me some specific examples? It's hard to imagine that that's something like the internet. that came from the military, but I think I've heard that that's the case.
Yeah, the internet's it's a perfect example. It started as a research project that was funded by the U.S. Department of Defense.
Wow.
The idea was to create a communication network that was robust,
Yeah.
decentralized, something that could survive a nuclear attack.
Oh, wow.
And what started as a military project, well, it eventually evolved into the global network that we all rely on today.
That's incredible. Are there any other examples of, technologies that kind of jumped from the battlefield to our living rooms?
Oh, tons of them.
Huh.
GPS, which we use all the time for navigation in our cars, on our phones. That was originally developed for military purposes.
Right.
Jet aircraft.
Yeah.
Initially designed for combat, they were later adapted for commercial aviation,
Mhm.
which made the world smaller, connected people across vast distances. Even the microwave oven, which is, a pretty basic appliance these days, that has its roots in radar technology that was developed during World War II.
It's fascinating to think about how seemingly unrelated fields can influence each other,
Yeah, that is.
how a breakthrough in one area can lead to something completely unexpected in another, but it also highlights, the need to think about ethics, when we're developing new technologies, especially those that have potential military applications.
Right.
We have to be mindful of the consequences, right? Intended and unintended.
Absolutely. I mean, the history of technology it's full of examples of inventions that were originally created for peaceful purposes, but then ended up being weaponized. We have to be careful, make sure that our technological advancements are serving humanity,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
It's a good reminder that we're not just passive observers in all this. We have a say. We have a responsibility to shape how technology develops. But now, with all this knowledge of the past, I want to shift our focus to the future. What does the future hold for technology and humanity? Are you optimistic about what's ahead, or are there things that worry you?
Well, predicting the future it's always a tricky business.
Right.
But we can look at, emerging trends, we can see where things are headed
Right.
and get a glimpse of what might be possible.
Okay, so let's speculate a little bit then. What are some of the things that have you, excited or maybe a little apprehensive about the future of technology?
W- One of the most interesting and potentially transformative ideas out there is this idea of the fourth industrial revolution,
Yeah.
or Industry 4.0, as some people
There's
call
this
it.
Industry 4.0.
Yeah, and it's basically this vision of a future where digital technologies are seamlessly integrated into every aspect of manufacturing of production.
So we're talking about, like, no, smart factories, robots working alongside humans, artificial intelligence, all that stuff.
Exactly. It's about creating this hyper-connected, highly automated, industrial ecosystem.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. But how far away is that vision?
Well, parts of it are already happening. We're seeing automation, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, advanced robotics, and all these technologies. They're blurring the lines between the physical world and the digital world.
So it's not just a futuristic fantasy.
No, not at all. I mean, the challenge is figuring out how to use these technologies
Right.
in a way that benefits everyone.
Yeah, and I can see the potential benefits, in terms of efficiency, productivity, but I also worry about the impact on jobs. Are robots going to take over everything? Are we all going to be out of work?
It's a valid concern. Automation is going to displace some jobs, that's for sure,
Mm.
especially jobs that involve, repetitive tasks.
Okay.
But it's also going to create new opportunities,
Hmm.
in fields like software development, data analysis, robotics engineering, all these areas that require uniquely human skills.
So it's not necessarily a doom and gloom scenario.
No, I don't think so. I think the key is in adapting, adapting our education systems, our training programs to prepare people for this new world of work.
So it's about being proactive,
Yeah.
anticipating the changes and making sure that everyone can benefit.
Yeah, exactly. It's about embracing the potential of these technologies while also, addressing the challenges they bring.
Okay, so Industry 4.0 is one thing to keep an eye on. What other technological advancements are on the horizon? Are there any areas that you're particularly excited about?
Well, biotechnology is another field that holds tremendous promise. Advancements in gene editing, synthetic biology, personalized medicine,
Yeah.
all of this is revolutionizing healthcare. It's giving us the potential to cure genetic diseases, to enhance certain traits, maybe even to extend human lifespans.
Gene editing, that sounds pretty sci-fi.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Are we
Yeah.
talking about, designer babies?
Well, the potential is there for sure, for both good and bad,
Right.
and it's important that we have these conversations about the ethical implications of all of this. But
Yeah.
gene editing also has the potential to eliminate diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. It
Yeah.
could offer hope to millions of people.
It's a lot to grapple with.
Yeah.
Weighing the potential benefits against the ethical risks. It's like we're entering this uncharted territory.
Well, there.
But speaking of pushing boundaries, what about space exploration? Are we going to colonize Mars anytime soon?
Well, colonizing Mars, that's still a long way off. There are a lot of, technical and logistical hurdles to overcome.
Okay.
But the space industry it's changing rapidly. You have private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin. They're driving down the cost of space travel.
Right.
And they're opening up all these new possibilities for exploration, for resource extraction.
So it's not just about government agencies like NASA anymore.
No, not at all. It's becoming more and more commercialized. And this is creating a whole new space economy,
Mm-hmm.
with potential for things like asteroid mining,
Yeah.
space tourism,
Mm.
you know, even the construction of orbital habitats, which could serve as stepping stones for further exploration, and maybe even as alternative living spaces.
Yeah.
As we deal with climate change and resource depletion here on Earth.
Orbital habitats, that's pretty wild. But I guess as we venture further into space, we're going to have to develop new ways of living, of working in these extreme environments.
Absolutely.
It's both exciting and a little scary. All the possibilities.
Uh,
But amidst all this talk about, progress pushing boundaries, I'm wondering about the limits of what we can do. Is there a point where our progress is just gonna, hit a wall, or are we on this endless path of exponential growth?
That's a question that's been debated for a long time.
Right.
Moore's law, which predicted that the number of transistors on a microchip would double every 2 years. Well, that's held true for decades,
Hmm.
and it's driven this incredible growth in computing power that we've all gotten used to. But we're getting close to the physical limits of how small we can make these things. We can't keep shrinking transistors forever.
So are we hitting a ceiling? Does that mean that the era of rapid technological advancement is coming to an end?
Well, it's not necessarily a sudden stop. Moore's law might be running out of steam, but there are other approaches to computing, like quantum computing.
Modern computing, what
Yeah.
is that?
Well, quantum computing it uses the principles of quantum mechanics, which is a branch of physics, to perform calculations that are impossible for traditional computers, and it has the potential to unlock just enormous processing power. It could revolutionize fields like cryptography, materials science, drug discovery.
It sounds incredibly complex.
It is. It's still in its early stages of development. There are a lot of technical challenges to overcome before it becomes something that everyone can use. But the research is moving quickly, and it's definitely a technology to watch.
It's both exciting and a little daunting to
Yeah.
think about. But amidst all this talk of progress, of innovation, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, something that I find really, really troubling. You mentioned this resurgence of irrationality, in a world that's increasingly dominated by technology, and it seems almost paradoxical. How can we be, experiencing this comeback of magical thinking,
Mm.
of anti-intellectualism at a time when we have access to more information than ever before?
It's a strange phenomenon for sure.
It is.
And it's something we need to think about carefully. I mean, we have all this information at our fingertips, right?
Yeah.
But we're also seeing this rise in pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, this distrust of experts. And it's a trend that could really undermine scientific progress.
Yeah.
It could erode the foundations
Yeah.
of rational discourse. It's something we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I've noticed this myself, this growing skepticism, toward institutions. And people are more willing to believe, alternative explanations, even if there's no evidence to support them. So why do you think this is happening? Is it like a backlash against the complexity of the modern world, or is there something deeper going on?
Well, I think there are probably a lot of factors at play.
Yeah.
One possibility is just information overload. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information these days
Yeah.
from all sides. It's coming from everywhere, and it can be really hard to sort through it all. To figure out what's true and what's not.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
And this can lead to confusion, to distrust, and it can make people more likely to accept, simple explanations, things that appeal to their emotions, even if those explanations aren't, based on facts.
So it's not necessarily that people are, less intelligent or anything like that. It's just that it's hard to keep up with all the information out there.
Yeah, it's like we're drowning in data,
Hmm.
and people are, they're grabbing onto whatever they can find, even if it's, a piece of driftwood that's not going to keep them afloat.
That's a good analogy. But what about the distrust of institutions? You mentioned that earlier. Do you think that's part of it?
Oh, I think it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
There's this feeling,
Hmm.
that the people in charge, the traditional sources of authority, whether it's the government, the media, scientific experts, you know, that they're not looking out for us. And this distrust, it's fueled by real concerns.
Yeah.
Concerns about corruption, bias, the concentration of power in the hands of a few. And this distrust can create a vacuum, and that vacuum can be filled by these alternative sources of information, even if that information is just wrong.
Yeah, it's a dangerous trend. This erosion of trust in institutions and expertise, it makes people more vulnerable to manipulation.
Exactly.
So what can we do about it? How do we encourage people to think critically, to value evidence, to engage in rational discourse?
Well, I think education is a big part of it. We need to teach people how to evaluate information. How to tell the difference between evidence and just anecdotes.
Yeah.
How to recognize the techniques of persuasion. So they're not easily manipulated.
Okay.
And we need to help people understand the value of science.
Yeah.
Of evidence-based decision making.
So it's not just about, teaching facts and figures. It's about teaching them how to think.
Exactly. We need to give them the tools. To navigate this world of information.
Yeah, it's about empowerment, giving people the confidence to think for themselves.
That's exactly. We need to encourage healthy skepticism,
Hmm.
a willingness to question assumptions, to demand evidence. And we need to promote civil discourse, a space where people can disagree respectfully,
Yeah.
where they can have these conversations, these debates, and learn from each other.
Yeah, that's so important.
We have to remember that knowledge it's a journey. It's not a destination. And learning, it's something we do throughout our lives. It's never over.
Well said.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening out there, if you want to, dive deeper into this topic, I highly recommend checking out the book that we've been talking about, Technology and the Growth of Civilization by Giancarlo Genta and Paolo Riberi. It's a really fascinating exploration of, how we got here, and it offers some really valuable insights into how we might navigate the complexities of our technological future. And if you're interested in continuing the conversation, come join us on our website,
Mm.
or on our social media pages. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the role of technology in your life, your hopes, your concerns about the future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.